Suicide. 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 Are you starting to feel uncomfortable yet? There is so much stigma around the word suicide. Today is World Suicide Prevention Day, and the whole point is to get people talking about suicide to help reduce the number of deaths by suicide. But how are we supposed to talk about it if we can't even say it? So this time, on the count of 3, let's all say the word. Suicide. Did you do it? Or did you just sort of mumble under your breath? Or just say it in your head, because that counts, right? It doesn't though, does it? Because there are thousands and thousands of people out there having thoughts that they don't want to be here, that they can't do this anymore, that they are too tired, that really everyone would be better off if they weren't around. And they don't have the words to reach out, because the one word that describes what they're going through is so stigmatized. How can you tell someone how you're feeling when even the mention of the word is taboo? Okay, so let's talk. Let's talk myths and facts. Let's talk about suicide. Now that we've learnt that the word is not going to magically make the world end, let's talk about it. Let's talk about suicide. So one of the myths I hear around suicide a lot is this idea that talking about suicide will make people suicidal, will give them ideas somehow. Whereas all the suicide prevention strategies that exist will tell you that the best way you can help someone who is having suicidal thoughts is to ask them about it. And not to ask them about it in fluffy, roundabout, are you going to do anything silly, or you're not having thoughts of hurting yourself, are you? Telling them what answer you want to hear, but point blank asking, have you had thoughts of suicide? Are you thinking of ending your life? And that is one of the best ways we can help people, because answering a simple yes or no question is a lot easier than having to find the words when your brain feels like mush dripping out of your ears. The second myth I hear about suicide is that only really ill people, only really crazy people, only people with severe mental health problems die by suicide or think about suicide. The official statistic at the moment, I believe, is that 1 in 5 people will think of suicide at some point in their lives. So 20% of people. That is a huge amount of people. Think of the number of people in your life and divide it by 5. Exactly. And those people are suffering in silence. They are keeping those thoughts to themselves because of fear, embarrassment, whatever. And even if those people never go on to make an attempt on their life, which 1 in 15 people will, they are living with really distressing, really painful thoughts, and they deserve help with that. Final myth that I wanted to talk briefly about is one that I hear a lot, even from people who know a lot about mental health, even from professionals, even from people who are very well informed in a lot of ways, and that is the idea that the people who talk about suicide aren't the ones who end up dying by suicide. That if someone's talking about suicide, then it's okay, because if they really wanted to die, they wouldn't tell anyone about it. And that is one that I struggle with personally, because there were long periods in my life where I felt suicidal, where I wanted to end my life, and I really struggled to be honest about that for all sorts of reasons. But part of the reason was, but if I tell anyone, they won't take me seriously, because if I really wanted to die, why would I tell anyone? But the thing is that suicidal thoughts aren't just one thing. That it's not just I want to die or I don't want to die. It's not a one day I woke up and I was 100% sure that I wanted to die. Becoming suicidal is a journey, and even at my lowest point, even at my closest point to ending my life, where I had the plan, I had the date set, I knew what I was going to do, when I was going to do it, how exactly it was going to happen. I'd thought it all through, and I was convinced that that day was going to be the end of my life. Even at that point, I wasn't 100% sure that I wanted to die. I was just 100% sure that I was going to die. It wasn't that I didn't want to be alive anymore. It wasn't that I wanted to die exactly. It was just that I couldn't be alive anymore. I could not cope. I had run out of the energy. I had run out of the resources to cope with what was going on in my mind at the time. That I was just terrified of the thought of more and more days like that over and over again. Those of you who are watching this because you're my running friends may have encountered the experience of bonking, and that may be a very random thing to throw in here, but for the non-runners amongst you, bonking is what happens when your body runs out of fuel, when you don't hydrate properly, you don't refuel properly with your jelly babies or your disgusting little sachet things or whatever, and your body has physically not got the fuel that it needs to keep going anymore. And that is the closest experience I can think of to describe how being suicidal felt for me. Being suicidal felt like I did not have the fuel to keep going anymore. There was nothing that could make me carry on living the life I was living. And it wasn't that I didn't want to, just like the person whose body has run out of sugar, and that person fully wants to finish their marathon, finish their triathlon, get to the end of their race, but their body won't let them. And I wanted to keep living, but I didn't want to keep living the way I was at the time. And my brain would not let me carry on that way. Thankfully, I had some wonderful people in my life that intervened and kept me safe until I had built up more resources, until I had found better ways of living and I had found more ways to cope. But at that moment, I could not see that as a viable option. And given the option of carrying on as I was and dying, I chose dying. And through all of that, there was still a little voice at the back of my head screaming, no, I don't want to die. I don't want this to end. I want to get better. I want to enjoy my life. I've got so many good things and I want to experience them again. But that little voice was a little voice, and it was a lot littler than all the other voices. And sometimes that little voice was strong enough to reach out to friends or to my mental health team at the time and say, I am feeling suicidal and I want to end my life. And luckily some of those people listened, because if they hadn't, then I probably wouldn't have survived. And that's how important it can be to listen to someone. Just really want to get the point across that suicide is not some weird, rare alien thing. It's not something that happens to other people. It's not something to be hushed up and kept a secret, because the more we hush it up, the less we talk about it, the more people continue to die from it. Those of you who are concerned about yourself or about a loved one, I will put some resources and things in the typey bit, because if you are feeling suicidal, the best thing you can do is to talk about it, is to tell someone. And if you are worried about someone else, the best thing you can do for them is to talk about it, is to ask them, is to find out what's going on and what they need. Love you all. Bye bye.